Okay. And I have to remember to mute this other one.
Yes, it's always a good thing to remember.
Yeah. I always remembered when I was doing it, making the live streams in real time rather than before I started pre-recording them. I always had to remember to make sure that the mute was on, because if not only do you get the feedback, but if you're wearing the headphones, your ear canals are going to explode. So
yeah, like it just happened now.
Oh no.
It's always fine when it's someone else's voice, but when I hear my voice like back at me, there's always this moment of, oh God, who is that?
Oh my God, my wife just had that moment yesterday.
Yeah.
She's like, that's not how it sounds in my head.
That's one of the good things.
Yeah, it's like, she said to me, that's not how I sound in my head. I said, well, look, I know how I sound in my head, but I know that when the words are coming out of my mouth, I sound like a 10-year-old girl, but that's beside the point. Because I have that experience. Every single time I'm talking to someone on the phone, especially if it's a stranger, everyone always thinks it's a woman, because I don't have a masculine voice, unfortunately. But I can't help it.
Yeah, that's one of the things, like, editing videos of myself, I had to get used to hearing my own voice. And the first few times I was like, this is horrifying. Like, how does anyone talk to me? I never want to listen to this again. And then eventually I got used to it, and now I've like made peace with it. But it's not a fun experience the first time you hear what everybody else hears. You're like, how can this be? Like,
I want to know how Vin Diesel feels. If he's okay with it, then everyone should be okay with it.
Yeah. It's like when I hear myself speak, I like, if I'm talking and I just hear what I'm saying, it's like, oh, well, I sound like Catherine Zeta-Jones. It's all good. And then I hear it and I sound like I'm two. And I'm like, no.
We have to just be blessed with what we have, plain and simple. Because we're not gonna. Well, could we physically change our voices? There are ways to do it, but why would we? Because, it's the uniqueness of us. It's an extension of our personality, and it's one of a kind, plain and simple.
Exactly.
Right. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to hang out until we can kind of see how many people have dropped in. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even. I thought you could see the live comments in the StreamYard thing. Do you have to pull up the YouTube video?
To reply, usually.
Oh, okay. All right. That's cool.
Well, it's a lot easier because I'm hosting it. Like, it's really easy for me to see the comments and stuff, but what Taylor and I have kind of been doing is, if we're not hosting, we open up a separate tab because it's just easier.
Got it. All right. Well, I just brought up the YouTube video and I put it on mute right away. So I'm going to split my screen so I can see both.
Awesome. Kara, I started Mansfield Park. It's the only one I haven't read, and I'm liking it. I don't know why people hate it so much.
Yeah, I am so excited to hear your thoughts on it. It's the one I've read the least number of times. So I'm also curious to see like if my feelings have changed on it at all. But yeah, there's a lot of like great discussion. Like, I have like my color-coded tabs ready to talk about. Like, it's gonna be good.
I'm excited.
I think.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think from what I've heard, a few of the people who are reading along with us, they've also never read Mansfield Park. So we're going to have a lot of like first-time reactions, which will be fun.
Yeah. Steve, since you might not know, and the people dropping in might not know, Kara and I are doing a Jane Austen read-along where we read all of her books. And to this day, I have read every single thing she's written. I've read almost all of her main novels. I've read the letters she wrote to her sister. I've read like the little stories and plays she wrote as a kid. I have not read Mansfield Park. It's the only one I haven't read.
Well, I've never read anything from Jane Austen, but I will say I am a very big fan of the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. I've always loved that.
Love
that is just fun. It's such a, even though it's like I know what it's based on, even though I've never read it, but I just find the whole concept brilliant. That's why I love it so much.
It's a really good adaptation.
It's a really solid adaptation.
Yeah. But I've been having fun with my reread, so that's where I am.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Good.
That is awesome.
I know. I just started it. A couple days ago too. But I'm also like enjoying it so far. I'm glad because yeah, like I said, this is the one I've had like the least number of rereads. So, but it's also one where I like it more every time I read it. So I'm curious to see if that trend continues. Yeah, but I'm very excited to talk about it. Okay. I feel like the YouTube counter for how many people are watching is not super accurate
Well,
because
either
it
way,
keeps
I'm tweeting
changing
it
a
out.
lot.
I'm going to tweet it out right now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And after you do that, we might want to just do like an introduction, and as people kind of drop in, they can catch up, I think.
For sure. For sure. I'm just going to
Because
give
that's
it
a great
another
thing
refresh.
about having the live streams saved.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Cool.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Kara. My channel is Wild Book Garden. And today I'm joined by my friends Steve from The Lawn Gnome and Taylor from Page Screen Taylor. And we are all very excited to be discussing a very relevant topic right now, and that is physical versus digital media. And we're going to start off with just some quick introductions. And before we get started with that, I want to say a special thank you to Steve, who actually came up with the idea for this topic. He kind of like floated the possibility. Like, great, Taylor, are you in? So here we are. So thank you for that, Steve. And yeah, if you guys want to just like briefly introduce yourselves, and we'll get started.
Okay. Well, I said this when Taylor and I did a live
You may
stream
start.
yesterday. And I can't take all the credit for this. I mean, don't get me wrong. This conversation is something that I've been wanting to have with members of the YouTube community for years. And one of the few things that I will say is Taylor and I have had amazing conversations for the last year or three, I think it is at this point in time.
Probably,
And yeah, and I just said to myself, you know, if there's anybody that I can have this conversation with, Taylor's definitely one of them. But Kara, you recently started leaving some comments in my recent videos, especially with some of the things that I've been talking about on my channel. And I'm just glad that you wanted to do a collab with me. And this is just such a real treat for me to actually be a part of this. But the introduction, my name is Steve. I am on the channel The Lawn Gnome. I am all live showed out because this is my third live show of the weekend, but I am still very excited for this conversation just because of the fact that it's a conversation I've wanted to have for a very long time. And the fact that it's happening makes me very, very excited.
Awesome. I can introduce myself. So I'm Taylor from Page Screen Taylor. I post videos about books, and I do mostly live streams with Steve a lot of the times about media and movies as well, because I am a huge movie buff. I am also the co-host of Austen Anonymous with Kara. So we know each other really well, and I am so excited to be a part of this discussion because I love media of all sorts. So.
Yeah. And as I already said, my name is Kara. I'm really excited about this because Steve and I haven't actually worked on the same project before, but we've been friends for a while now, and Taylor and I have definitely done several projects together. And this is a topic. Also, opinions. I think pretty much everybody has strong opinions about this topic or another. So really excited to discuss it. And thank you to all of you guys who are watching along. Or who go back and watch this later. And I also want to make a quick note. I have been having a little bit of Wi-Fi problems lately. Everything was going fine, and then today it decided to be very inconsistent. So it's been okay, but if something happens and I have to try and fix something, just hang out and confidence that Taylor and Steve will be able to station until I can drop back in. So hopefully in this case. So we're going to start off with just kind of preferences or initial thoughts. So how do you guys, Steve and Taylor, what are your preferences when it comes to physical or digital media, or any kind of initial opinions you have about this topic? And let's start with Taylor this time.
Okay. So I'm actually right down the middle. I love both equally. And I think I used to be very much a physical media purist. You know, I had to have the physical book, I had to have the DVD, I had to have just a physical copy, a CD or something. But now that being in college, when you can't haul all of your physical books with you, I travel a lot. I've come to appreciate digital media a lot. I love audiobooks, and I just finished an entire series on ebook, and I love the convenience of it. But I also feel like there's nothing like physical media. So I am right in the middle. I love both equally.
I think the back of what's behind me speaks for itself, where I personally fall. But I do understand the appreciation for the technology that people do start to use a lot now, and the fact that a lot of people do see the convenience factor there, but especially some of my attitudes that I have towards technology is it can be your best friend, but can also be your greatest of enemies. And I'll just save the rest of my thoughts for now, because this is something that I'm extremely passionate about. I might get a little enraged through my discussion, so just beware, everybody. And I also do have props in regards to some examples as to why I fall into certain areas of this conversation.
Kara, I think you're frozen a bit.
Yeah, Kara actually put something in the private chat. No, she's constantly rebooting.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, I was getting a little bit nervous when I was doing one of my live streams yesterday, because at a certain point I saw like your internet is in trouble, and I'm like, oh my god, that means if my internet goes out, I will have lost about 2 hours worth of a discussion. I was like, do not do this to me now.
It always happens when you have a live stream. That's when your technology starts to go a little wonky.
Yeah, I know. I just don't understand. But then again, based on some of the things that I've said in regards to the uses of technology, clearly I find the faults through these, and here's a perfect example.
Exactly. Well, I can read a comment. So Olivia's Catastrophe, hi, it's nice to see you here, said, I used to be balanced between physical and digital, but lately I lean towards physical a lot more. When I travel, I switch to digital, but I tend toward physical. And that is like, I feel like that's how a lot of people tend to fall now. There tends to be, especially like, I think when traveling, that's when the convenience of digital becomes a little more apparent. But I will always say there's nothing like a physical copy of, I'm assuming, books.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect example that, especially when I was starting to, honestly, if I really, really think hard about it, when I really started to show my attitude about physical and digital media, it was actually when the iPod started to become something a lot more predominant. And I understood the thought of having like your entire music collection in your pocket. And when I was actually going to the gym, because when I had a different job and I was living in a different location, I had the ability to go to the gym a lot more often. So yes, having a iPod strapped to your arm rather than having a Discman in your pocket is much more convenient. But then you say to yourself, I've got all these songs in this little device, but am I actually going to put this device on and listen to everything that I've got on the iPod in one shot? Of course not. I mean, I prefer that when you're in your car. Kara's back. Is everything okay?
I'm glad I warned everybody that this might happen. Okay. Continue as you guys were.
Yeah, but I was basically saying it's like when I'm in my car, I'm not going to plug in my iPod. I'm going to bring a small set of my CDs, because I know I'm only going to be in the car for a small amount of time, especially if I'm going to be in the car for more than 20 minutes. That's more than enough time to at least listen to a 75% of a CD. And Other than
Yeah.
that, it's just, and then there's just the radio. So I'm completely okay with having my CDs more of the time than I have my iPod with me.
Exactly.
Yeah. And as for me, if it's like my personal preferences, I will almost always choose physical media. I like the security of knowing I have a physical copy of something because it's very convenient to me to be able to like upload content to like my computer digitally or like an iPod or my phone. But I know that if something would go wrong like that with that, which I've actually had happen to me before, where the cloud just like deleted everything. I like knowing that I have like I can still get that back. Like I won't need to worry about proving that I've already bought something. And then as for books, I also definitely prefer physical. I do like the convenience of being able to read an ebook on my phone, for example, especially if it's for something that isn't available physically. But I think I've talked about several times how like audiobooks don't really work for me. So I acknowledge that it's very important to have that accessible to people who need them or who just enjoy them. But for me personally, if it comes down to what I enjoy more, it's pretty much always going to be physical media. Okay, and then, all right, next, let's talk about like the kind of general attitude that we feel like there is. So we've kind of talked about what we prefer, and I see that we've had people talking in the comments about how they feel. Olivia says she also prefers to have physical unless she's traveling, which I know a lot of people. That is really nice about not having to worry about packing books and everything. And then Julia, let's see. Julia also mentioned that it's kind of lower risk. Like if you want to try a new genre or something, it's a lot cheaper to get the audiobook or the ebook, or you can even get it from your library and not worry about having to pay for like a full like physical book, which can be very expensive. So I think those are great points. So, okay, let's see if I missed anything else while I was off the internet. Okay, so yeah, if you guys want to just talk about what you feel like overall the trend is towards right now, like in the world. And I think we started with Taylor last time. So Steve, you want to go ahead and go first?
Well, clearly, when it comes to what the trend is leaning towards now, not necessarily towards people like ourselves. We're definitely a unique bunch because of the fact that we are YouTubers. So there's definitely more of a collector's attitude out there. But when you take an average person, they are truly leaning towards the technological use of media. They're looking to the streaming services. They're looking towards the ebooks. They're looking towards the MP3s because they just don't have any attitude towards the collector's value. In regards to some of the things that are happening in the world right now because of the pandemic, one of the big things that really, still is hurting me right inside right now is the fact that all the movie theaters are closed. But some of the movie companies are basically saying, so some of these movies, we're going to push them back a little bit in theaters, but some of these movies are going to come straight to your streaming service. So yeah, there are some movies now on the streaming services that I'm interested in, but it's $20 to buy it if you want to watch it. Now, that's close to the amount of money that at least two people can go to a movie theater and see the movie for, but these are some movies that my wife doesn't want to watch with me. So why should I spend $20 for the sake of renting a movie for the sake of just seeing if I like it or not? I mean, I think there's a much more of an experience in regards to the movie theaters. But one of the few things that I have said numerous times to so many people is the whole thing with the streaming services, because there were so many people that were cutting their cable. And they're basically saying his streaming services are much, much cheaper. They were, but look at what's happening right now. Now the streaming wars are starting. So you've got Disney Plus, you've got Netflix, you've got Amazon Prime, although Amazon Prime's a different animal to a degree. But you've got the CBS streaming service, you've got Peacock for NPC, and now the big one that if I were to choose any of those streaming services, if I had to have one, it would be HBO Max, because HBO Max is going to have so many great things. Classic Warner Brothers cartoons, Hanna-Barbera cartoons, the whole Cartoon Network service outside of the cartoons, the Harry Potter franchise, the Matrix franchise, the DC films, the DC animated shows. So many great, great things, but you're renting. That's what you're really doing. You're renting things, you don't own them. And also, when you take a look at that, if you're going to want to have everything that you love, you're obviously going to have to buy a couple of those streaming services. So when you think about it, you're going to end up having a bill that's just about the same as your cable bill once was. So why would you do, so what's the difference at this point? You know what I mean? But the other thing that I was trying to explain, and even though I do have Netflix, I have Netflix because when I was a graduate student, I got it at a discount. So the price has gone up, but I'm okay with it because there are some things there that I like. But I tried to explain this to my mother the other day, and I was saying, think about it this way. One of your favorite things on Netflix, and pretty much a lot of people, is Stranger Things. People love Stranger Things. I love Stranger Things. So you're paying $15 a month for the sake of renting Stranger Things.
Yeah.
However, go to Target and you throw $20 down for the Blu-ray, and then you have Stranger Things, and you don't have to pay for it anymore.
Yeah.
That's the point of where physical media really, to me, is so much better from a money standpoint. Yes, buying a DVD, buying a book at first, yes, it's expensive. But once you've paid for that item, you have it. You don't have to pay for it ever again.
Yeah. And you don't run the risk of the streaming service deciding not to carry it anymore.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There was one thing on Netflix that I was constantly watching. It was the Making Fun, the documentary of Funko. I just found out that it's not on there anymore. It's been on there for about 2 years. I loved that documentary.
Yeah.
So they never put it on DVD or anything like that, but who knows when that'll happen. But I've seen it enough. I'm okay.
Yeah. Taylor, what do you think? What do you feel like the general attitude is?
I think I do agree with you, Steve, that there is a little something lost in terms of the movie theater experience. But I also think that, especially in the age of coronavirus, all of this digital media is a godsend, honestly.
Yeah.
Because, we're bored in the house and we're in the house bored. So you have all of these movies and TV shows just available for you because not all of us can go out to Target, or we don't have a place where we can buy DVDs readily available. On top of that, all of these digital library services have been amazing to me. I just checked out My Sister the Serial Killer on Libby, and I haven't read it yet, but I love the fact that I have that freedom to just, with a few presses of my finger, I can have all of these things right available to me. And I think in the age of coronavirus, where we're not going out and we're not doing things, digital media makes so many things possible for us.
I won't disagree. Yeah. I won't disagree with you. I understand that the situation that we're in is unique. That's true. Yeah. I mean, another thing that I will definitely say that Netflix is good for, because I've been saying this line so much. I'm the old fart in the room. Video stores. That was where we went to rent things. So it's sort of like a video store. It's a good opportunity for you to actually sample something that you've never seen before, because that's pretty much what Netflix is used in my world. It's like, if there's a movie on there that I never saw, but I was always curious about it, if I like the movie after I've watched it on Netflix, when I'm able to, especially if it's for a fair price, I'll go out and buy it so I can watch it every time again and again and again. Because like Kara said, if it's not carried at some point in time, how are you going to watch it again if you like it so much?
Exactly.
Yeah. Another thing I want to mention is, from my perspective, I think the reason that we are hearing so much about the digital media, and I mean even before all the self-isolation started, but it feels like a lot of the articles and opinion pieces and all of this is about people moving towards digital media. And I feel like yes, there is kind of a general trend that way, a slight trend, but I also think a big part of it is that that's the new and developing technology. like you're not going to hear about somebody with a new way to publish a physical book, you know, like that doesn't really happen anymore. Like there's obviously still like book news and book events, but if it's about like the fact that I think digital media is more of an emerging industry, I think it kind of skews the coverage of it. So it seems like everybody is going digital, when really it's like people are covering that because it's the new thing, you know? At least, I mean, that's from my perspective. I feel like that, yes, there is a trend towards digital media, but I don't think it's as overwhelming as it sometimes feels just because of how we cover it.
Yeah, you're right. I could give an example if you both like.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the few things that I've been talking about a lot on my channel, and it's actually finally hit the mainstream media, it's been talked about a lot on YouTube, is what's been going on with the comic book industry. And one of the solutions that some of these big companies have been thinking about is putting out the comic books in digital and possibly do what's also being done with regular books, which is called print on demand. And that's basically, you know, if you read an ebook or you read something digital and you like what you read, you can actually send a message to the publishing company and say, I'd like a physical copy of this book, please. You pay them the money and they give you the physical copy. But the thing about the comic book industry was there was a poll that was done when they were seriously considering, especially because of the fact that right now there is no distribution of new comic books right now because of the epidemic. And it's causing a lot of strain on the companies, but it's also really upsetting for the readers who have been waiting for some of these new issues because there's been some great stories happening in the big name comic book franchises. But when a statistics was recently taken about digital comic book reading, and out of the market, it's less than 15% of people that actually read digital comics. And the reason why is because of the fact that when it comes to having a physical copy, it's not just the concept of reading the book, it's also because it's adding to the collector's value. If you don't have the physical copy and you just read it, there's just something lost. I mean, look, this is just a plain old bunch of pages with some pictures on it, but this book is worth over $80 right now. And this is a very new book. This is just like red hot because the Joker's new girlfriend is in it. So the whole comic book industry is going bonkers for it. So it's amazing to know. So it's amazing to know that a book that costs $4 cover price is now worth like $80 to $100. And that's the reason why people get the physical copy, because it adds to the fun of the whole experience. And I feel that if it's just going to be digital, something's lost there.
Can I bring out something that's a little bit the opposite?
Okay.
Something that I've noticed is also that a lot of digital media is being transferred to physical media as well. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Adventure Zone, but if you're yes, it's amazing. So the Adventure Zone is my favorite podcast, and it's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast that I highly recommend, done by 3 brothers and their dad, and it's really sweet. But people love the comics so much that 1, they're making a Peacock show about it, and 2, they adapted it into a graphic novel series, because people wanted to read it physically. And it's really interesting to see the medium go from improv podcast and try to translate it into a physical form. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and that is really exciting that there's like all these opportunities for different directions, like because of this digital media. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, I want to talk briefly, or not necessarily briefly, depending on how much we have to say about it, because it's a very important aspect of this, I think. And that is the issue of accessibility, because I think that's one of the most important things about having so many options for digital media is like, I have the liberty of saying I prefer physical books, but the fact is that for a lot of people, either they're unable to read physical books, like maybe they're vision impaired or something, or I have several friends actually who get really horrible muscle pain or muscle cramps. And even the physical act of like holding open a book is just excruciating for them if they've had a particularly bad pain day. And so it makes a huge difference to them to be able to have an e-reader and to just press a button and to be able to read that way. So I just wanted to hear if you guys had any thoughts on that topic, anything to add. I think we can all agree that that's like a strength of this. So we're not necessarily like, we're not like trying to debate how important it is. But if you guys have any like further thoughts or things that you've been considering.
Yeah, that was the one question I really wasn't sure how to answer, but just you giving a little bit more detail into the question made me think of something. And that's why, like I said, while I do really gear towards physical rather than digital, I do see the advantages in digital. And that's why the one thing that really upsets me about when a new trend comes in, there's always the concept of saying that one is going to stamp out the other. And I don't think that
Right.
should be the situation. I mean, it's not physical or digital media, but well technically it is. I mean, let's talk a little bit about, we don't have to go into too detail, but a great example that's very analogous is online shopping versus brick and mortar stores. You know, like, it's great to know that if you want something, you can easily go on to Amazon.com, or you can go on to the retailer, and with the click of a button, you can buy the thing you want. But there's a whole additional experience to actually going to the brick and mortar store, because especially with clothing, you know, it's like you think you know your size, but then when you go, until when you buy it and then you try it on, you realize, wait a minute, why does this not fit me? I thought I was such and such. It happens all the time with so many people that I know. But to get the opportunity to go to the store, enjoy the atmosphere, see the thing up close before you buy it, that's very advantageous. I mean, look, I buy a lot of Funko Pops directly online. They come straight to my door. And yes, there are times when I open up that box, the thing doesn't stand, or there's a paint smudge. I'm sure that if I went to the physical store and actually looked at everything individually, I can find the one that I like. But there's also the whole concept of it's convenience. That's the reason why digital is thriving, because it's convenient to a great degree.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, you know, that's why I hate the whole audiobooks aren't really reading debate, because it leaves out a whole section of the population that, you know, maybe they're visually impaired and they can't read a physical book. They're still taking in the story when it's audiobook. And I think something else we kind of touched on as well is financial accessibility.
Yes.
For example, you know, when you get a Netflix subscription, and obviously with all the streaming services, things have gotten a lot more complicated. But let's say a family of 5, which is what my family is, buys a Netflix subscription. That's $15, $20 a month. Whereas, and we can watch as many movies and TV shows as we can. But for all of us to go to a movie theater, that's, let's say, $10 a ticket if we're being generous. That's $50 for all of us to go to a movie theater for one film. Whereas, you know, Netflix, that's a whole different story. So I feel like digital media has helped a lot of people who maybe weren't able to access things like movie theaters and cable TV. It gives them an opportunity to access this media that they couldn't get to before.
Well, and I'm really glad that you brought up financial accessibility, because that is also a really important aspect of it. And I think so much of it just comes down to having an option for everybody, because maybe it's not that you physically can't read a book, or you physically can't listen to an audiobook because you're hard of hearing or something. It might just be different learning styles even. I am really awful with auditory processing. Audiobooks are just a lot of work for me. So just even little things like that can have a big effect on what people feel like their options are. I have several of my friends are memory book readers, and they have kind of the opposite problem, where it's a lot easier for them to focus on a story being read to them than to visually kind of taking it in. And so even when it's something that's not the accessibility and disability conversation is also extremely important. And I think it even goes beyond just being physically able to do one or the other. It's about giving people the option that is best for them and that is most convenient for them, and that makes them feel like they're fully a part of the reading community, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
The only curveball, though, is the fact that there's still a large portion of this country that doesn't have viable internet access or access to the technology itself. Because, look, unfortunately, everything costs money. And you're seeing this a great deal right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the one of the talking points that I see on the news a lot is what's going on with the education system, and the fact that the schools and the education and the board of educations of the local of the states and even the federal government had to find ways to make internet access and the iPads or the laptops accessible to all these students, because unfortunately there's a lot of low income families all across the country, and some of these people never even owned a computer because they couldn't afford it.
Exactly. That's a good point.
And no offense to anybody, let's also remember that a computer is much more expensive than a DVD.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point, that like financial accessibility doesn't always go one direction. Like in some cases, buying a physical book, like buying a classroom, a set of physical books is a lot cheaper than, giving all of them internet access so they can, access like the audiobook or a digital copy or something.
Right.
So yeah, it's not like a physical books are always more expensive thing. It really is like a case by case basis. And I feel like that's one of the biggest benefits of having this combination of digital and physical is like it's tied to what the community needs or what an individual person needs. So I think it was, I don't remember if it was Steve or you, Taylor, who said like it's not about which one is going to stamp out the other one. It's nice to have them both kind of working in concert. So hopefully that will happen more in the future.
But another thing that I want to talk about in regards to the monetary problem is also think about the way that a lot of these companies are taking advantage of people. I mean, look, it's a great thing, but does everybody have to have a smartphone that's a mobile phone? That's one of the few things that really angers me a lot, because this dinky little thing, yes, it's great that I have my email at my fingertips. I love the fact that I can access anything at my job with this little device. But this costs, the device itself, forget about the price of it itself, I'm paying over $100 a month to use this thing. Once again, a DVD could cost anywhere from $10 to $20, then you don't have to pay for it anymore. A CD could cost only $10 or even less. A book can cost somewhere between $10 to $20, and then you don't have to pay for it anymore. $100 and something just to use this phone. That's not fair.
Yeah. And the fact that it's so necessary.
Yeah, I mean, like, whatever happened to the day where phones were used for actually making phone calls? I'd take a flip phone if I could.
Yeah. And also, I want to bring up a comment that, let's see if I can show it, that Night Fear just made. She mentioned that her daughter has to use her phone to Zoom with her class because they don't have access to a computer. And I think that's a great point, because I feel like, and this started even like a few years ago when I was in college, possibly even before that, but there's starting to be this expectation that everybody has internet access all the time. And that's just not true. I think that's a real problem that in the education system, people are making that assumption, that everybody, like, yes, a lot of people do have computers, but not everyone does. And what if you're living in an area that has really terrible internet access? Or like, what if you normally do have access, but something happened and like you're not able to like use your phone that month or something? And I just feel like there's, I don't know, it seems there's going to be this expectation that you're not a good student or you're not a reliable student if you don't have those things 24/7. And it's like, sometimes it's out of people's hands,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Did any of you ever see the movie Super Size Me, by the way?
I did.
Because there's a part of it that, because I'm referencing the fact that they talked about the nutrition facts of McDonald's food was on McDonald's website. But then he says, but 60% of America doesn't have internet access. So what are they supposed to do if the nutrition facts are not in stores?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I am going to need to get up to grab my computer charger.
Okay, that's fine. The same thing happened to Taylor and me yesterday.
Yeah.
In the continuing saga of my digital media not working well. So I'm gonna pull my feed out of the stream really quick, but you guys please continue the discussion. I'll just be a minute.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was something I wanted to reference actually, Taylor. The channel Shakespeare and stuff. I know her name is Julia. I'm subscribed to her as well. She makes great content. I know that as well. She mentioned something in one of her comments that I wanted to harp on. She was basically saying like it would be a waste of money because I unhaul anything I don't plan to reread. I know that's the gamble about things that you buy when it comes to physical stuff. But
Yeah.
that's where I look at something like Netflix or Amazon Prime as an advantage, like a video store. Because I'm like, if I'm unsure about the film, if I want to own it or not, and you know this because you see how I review movies and such on my channel, it's like I always specifically say, is this a movie that I want to see again? And is this a movie that I want to own on DVD? There has to be, whether it's a movie or whether it's a book, like there's got to be rewatchability, at least for me personally, and definitely rereadability. Like I want to make sure that when I buy that book, I want to be excited to read that book again. It's like when I bought the Renegades trilogy, I just knew in my heart of hearts, because I had so much fun reading the Lunar Chronicles, that I was going to want those books and I was going to reread them. And I haven't reread them yet, but oh man, I will reread those books. And also, prop number 57, I had no issue buying the illustrated edition of Harry Potter.
I really want those.
I know that they're expensive, and people, please don't be offended. I'm not trying to flaunt cash or anything. I'm not Scrooge McDuck here. I'm just lucky, but I also get a lot of good gifts from people because I request these things. But I knew that getting this, even though I already had the regular book, I just knew that there was going to be something special when I picked it up, and it was like reading the books all over again. It's like, whenever a child comes into my wife and I's life, we know that when we introduce our future son or daughter or children to Harry Potter, we're going to want them to read that version of the book first because it's going to have the pretty pictures. They're just going to have an amazing reading experience. Not that the regular books were great experiences, but the illustrated editions are just a true gift for the Harry Potter fans out there.
Yeah, and you can totally read them to a kid who might not understand the physical books, but they can look at the pictures and get it from there. And you actually did bring up a good point, Steve. Mm-hmm. I love my Harry Potter books. They're not up here yet because I need to buy a special bookshelf for them. But there's something that digital media can't give us, and that my Harry Potter books are well loved. They have taken a beating. They've been dropped in water. They've had stuff spilled over them, but it shows how many times I've read the books, because I love them so much. Chamber of Secrets, which is my favorite book, looks like hell. It looks awful. It's always really nice looking at it because it's like those books are loved. As opposed to an audiobook or a ebook where, they don't look as well loved. Although I guess if you have the Kindle app, you can highlight them and write notes, but it's not the same.
Yeah, my wife uses Kindle and regular books hand in hand. She loves them both, but yeah, like I still remember the last time that we went to BookCon, she could barely get back to the car when we got off the train because she has had a backpack filled to the brim with books. and also, I'm definitely a fan of hardcover books because I feel that hardcovers are more durable and I also feel that they last long because even though I have so many paperbacks, when that spine starts to break, I get so upset with myself, even though I had been treating it preciously and kindly. But, when it comes to physical books, it's like when you take a book and you just go like you love that. It's your moment of zen. It just eases your spirits when you flip the pages. I love that. And I love the smell, the smell of the pages of a book, especially when it's new. Yeah. That's just like the best part about having a book, at least to me, besides the story itself.
Of course.
Yeah, I love to read them. I don't just like to smell them, people.
Something else you mentioned too, or someone else mentioned about rereadability and rereading books. Something I do, which I don't want to call it a waste of money since I use Libby now. I use Audible once in a while. But when I reread a book, I don't reread it physically. I use the audiobook.
Okay.
Because I feel like I might get tired, or I'll feel like I'm sort of wasting my time on a story I already know when I could be, reading another book physically. So an audiobook is kind of my out because I'm still reading it. Like once in a while, like with Harry Potter, I love rereading the physical books because they, like I said, they look so horrible. It reminds me of all the good times I had. But
we got people agreeing about the smell thing, by the way. Please finish your thought.
No new Netflix smell.
Yeah, no new Netflix smell. I agree, 100%.
I guess you can smell your TV, but it's not the same.
No, I think when it comes to Netflix, it's more of the goosebumps feeling because like when you start that new season of that show that you love so much, you just get so excited. But the same thing happened when my wife and I just turned on HBO and watched the new season of Game of Thrones, or when we watched the first season of His Dark Materials, which was, oh, that show was so good. I love it. I can't wait for season 2.
I really need to watch that.
It's great. It's great.
I would say with digital media, you don't get that little sassy Netflix message that they send you. Are you still watching The Office?
Why is that even a question? What does it mean? I think if it's asking you if you're still watching The Office, that's an insult. I mean, look, I'm not even an Office fan, but I know Office fan, and if Netflix is saying that, that's bad. Netflix, bad.
Like yes,
it's like you'll
watch 10 episodes.
Like you'll be marathoning a show and they'll like stop it to ask you like, should you be doing this? Like go do something else. And it's like, I do not sign up to Netflix for it to judge me. Thank you.
Exactly.
That is great.
I want to pull up a comment which goes along with what we were talking about earlier. She says that digital media is such a boon to the chronically ill, which I think is a great point.
Yes.
And she'll actually buy both copies of a book that she really loves, so she can have the beautiful edition on her shelf for when she feels well enough. And let's see if it'll show the other one. And that's what I was talking about too, is like there are lots of people who have either chronic pain or some kind of condition where it's just not feasible to hold a heavy hardcover book the entire time you're reading. So I think that's really great that digital media is providing better options, or better options depending on people's needs.
And it's not just that. It's also like, even when someone's just like got a cold or unfortunately the flu, it's like, I don't want to read, I just feel like, I remember so many times because I always have a book with me when I'm on my commute from work and to work. But on days where I'm really sick, it's just like, I just don't want to stare down and look at the book because I'm going to get like nauseous or something like that. I would much rather just close my eyes and listen to some music. So even though I will be honest, I've never listened to an audiobook in my life, but I understand that too.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
Yeah. We kind of covered this already because it's on everybody's minds, but the current virus outbreak, this has been an interesting time for digital media.
Yes.
So any other thoughts you guys have on that? But I specifically wanted to talk about something that happened right before all of this, the world fell apart. And that is the E-Book Embargo that I think it was Macmillan, right? I think they were the publisher who they started changing the rules for how much they were going to charge libraries. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was a huge deal. There were quite a few petitions circulating and a lot of librarians coming out against that and basically being like, you're going against the entire purpose of libraries, which is to make books free and accessible. And by changing, I think it was like based on new releases, like they wouldn't allow them to have like a certain number of copies or something. I don't actually remember the details now. But it was like if they bought, they'd have to pay a lot more, and they wouldn't be able to let more than one person check it out, even though it was like a multiple user copy or something like that. So if you guys like had any thoughts about that, if you remember that happening, because I also want to mention that maybe it was a month ago now when the self-isolation was just getting started, like Macmillan came out and was like, we're not going to do that anymore. Like, we messed up. Sorry about that. You guys can keep your free ebooks or something. Like, so they've been in discussions now about like how they're going to handle this going forward. But I thought that was one interesting, like a small silver lining to come out of all of this is hopefully publishers are realizing that free access to books is really important. So anyway, that was a long introduction. I'm sorry. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I can go. So,
Yeah.
like I said, access to digital media has been my bread and butter this whole time. Partially, I do feel guilty because I have so many books I haven't read yet, but having access to a library and getting digital copies of books because I can't go out to my bookstore and pick it up has been so amazing, and really it's been keeping me grounded this whole time with all of the audiobooks. I recommend the Good Omens audiobook, and all of the ebooks. I recommend Dangerous Spirits by Jordan L. Hawk. That's really been helping me get through this whole situation. So I do think library access to digital media is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't used a library in a long time, but I do appreciate libraries. And I think one of the best things about libraries is that people can donate their books there too. I think that that's great, especially those great booktubers that are trying to get rid of their big TBR piles that they'll never read and they don't know what to do with those books. I think that that's great because it's the whole concept of one man's trash is another man's treasure, and people will read it. I know one way, even if you don't like it, someone else will read it. It's like I have cleared my shelves of my music and my movies sometimes and sold them to stores that were willing to give me anything from cash to store credit because there was no reason to throw them in the trash. I'm like, someone's going to read this or someone's going to listen to this. But I think that, because I still remember that libraries were actually like in danger of even going extinct because there was all of this access now through the ebook concept. And more people were starting to basically say, I just want to own it. I don't want to read it. But now there's a big trend for people to go to the library because they should be there. Because, in regards to something digital like Amazon.com, one of the few things that I love so much about it is just like on Netflix, I can sample something. I like the ability to rent it once for the sake of seeing if it's something that I'll like. I mean, I love that when a music artist that I listen to, when they come out with a new album, I want to sample that album. I mean, the one thing I disagree with in regards to the whole download by the song is it's a great concept, don't get me wrong, but the problem is it basically gives the people the ability to just download the songs that they know and not listen to other songs on the albums, because and Kara collects CDs too. I appreciate that wholeheartedly. But when you only buy the single, you have no idea what you're missing. And number two, chances are, because it's about 90% of the time, the song that's on the radio from said artist, from said album, is the worst song on the entire album. And also, it's like please, no, Taylor, please.
Oh, I think it was Kara that was.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My eyes drifted, so I only heard voices.
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it as like you're missing out on that experience of getting the whole album or the whole content. I feel like that browsing mentality is also, it connects to what we were saying about libraries and physical bookstores too. Like there's something special about being able to walk in and just find something you weren't looking for. Like the online convenience is great, and I know that they do like recommendations or other people liked, which can be great features. But yeah, I do think there's something special about coming across things that you weren't planning on picking up, because I have found some great series and books and things I ended up loving that if I had been looking, like if I had been online, I wouldn't have thought to look for them, so I would never have come across them. So I think that's great. And another thing I wanted to mention about the E-Book Embargo thing is one of the things I thought was really cool about it is like the people who are coming out against it, about like this, this goes against everything that we should believe in as librarians or as readers. It kind of united people across all like physical and digital media perspectives, because it's like, even if these people had never read an ebook, it's like, how dare you tell someone they can't, it's like, you can't take away that accessibility from somebody. It's like, I might not be using it, but I'm going to fight for somebody else to be able to use it. So that was just something I also thought was really cool, is that like, it united people. And I'm glad that Macmillan did back off.
I That's ridiculous, by the way.
I'm interested to see like how that affects other publishers. Like if another publisher is going to try and do that, I would hope not. But I don't know. Now that it's been tried, I wonder if they're going to be like, they have a good point. Because apparently the reason they did it was like they were worried about losing money from libraries. And it's like, have you not read any of the studies about libraries? Like, libraries create readers who go on to buy books. Like,
yeah,
it's just very frustrating.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who will like check a book out from the library, and if they like it, they want to spend money on that author, so they'll go and buy that book or any of their other works. So
yeah, it's like there have been authors who I like discovered through a library, and then I ended up buying their next book, or I ended up pre-ordering their next book, like. And like, there's been authors where I put in like a substantial amount of money towards them because I knew I loved them because I got them from a library. So yeah, I think it's short-sighted of them to think that because they're not able to sell this one copy of the book, then like they're never going to be able to make money from it or something. So yeah, it's annoying to me.
I also wanted to say, in regards to technology as a whole, actually it could be one, it could be more, but one of the best things that has been a big positive for digital and for physical media is these kinds of things that we have, like YouTube and Twitch and all of that stuff, because it's also a great way for people to find out about new books or new movies or something like that. I mean, and the best part is the testimonials are coming from just average people that are so relatable to all of us. I mean, I still remember that there was a weekend a couple of years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, and I had nothing on the docket. I wasn't doing anything. My wife was going to be ultra busy with grading for school. And I looked onto YouTube, and there were about 6 or 7 YouTubers that I watch that were all talking about a movie that was coming out in theaters that weekend called Upgrade. And they were head over heels delighted about this movie. Like, they said, this is such a great movie. And I just went onto the internet, and I went to the movie phone / Fandango sites, and turned out that movie was actually playing in one of my local theaters. I didn't see a television ad spot for it. I didn't hear anything about it. I didn't even know that movie was coming out. So I went to spend a little time outdoors while my wife was working, and I saw that movie, and it turned out to be one of the best movies that I saw that year, and I even own a copy of it. I love that. I'll recommend it to anybody. So that's one of the few things that we have to thank Twitter and Facebook and YouTube for, because it's allowing us to go out and expand our horizons and find things, and we get to absorb them however we choose.
Yeah, that's so true. It's not just the ability to access media digitally, but having it recommended to you digitally. Like,
right.
I think that's a great point.
Who follows critics anymore?
I also want to ask you guys, what are some developments that you would like to see in the future? So related to like physical and digital media, like what are some changes that you think need to be made, or maybe things that are already starting to happen and that you think you'd like to see continue? Like for me, I really like the idea of including a digital copy as kind of an add-on, as like part of the purchase price. Like I know that there have been several DVDs that I've bought. Oh no, did we lose camera for a second?
No,
you're kind of breaking up.
Sorry,
a bit,
the camera like disappeared for a minute.
No, we got you.
Okay, great. Like some DVDs that I've bought most recently it's been that like DVD, Blu-ray, digital combo thing.
Yes.
And actually, like I love that. Like there have been several times when I was traveling, or like this actually started even when I was in college, so I could have a copy of a movie even if I didn't have the movie physically with me. So I actually really like that. I'd kind of like to see more of that.
Yeah, I mean, you basically expanded upon something that I said a little bit earlier. What it really needs to be is there needs to be a happy marriage between the two, rather than one stamping the other one out. Because one of the few things that, even though especially during these times, the technology that we have right now is a godsend because it's really helping us all cope right now. But one of the few things that a lot of people had been saying, and I'm someone who's a really big advocate about it right now, is even though it's great, it's not perfect, because the problem is we're overusing it and it's becoming more of a dependency rather than something that we just have access to. Because it's so funny, because a couple weeks ago, my wife and I had a power outage for over an hour. I'm sorry, over 24 hours. And we're sheltering in place. We can't go do anything outdoors to pass the time. And we had no access to technology. And the fact that when we don't have access to our phones, when we don't have access to our computers, it is sad to see that technology has basically become a must-have rather than an option to use. And I keep saying to people, the cloud is a lie. The purpose of having the physical media is to be able to know that you have it in case you have a digital copy and you lose it, because you could be someone who takes full advantage of downloading everything and putting it all into the Amazon cloud, for example. But there is going to come a day where Amazon is going to get hacked. And I mean seriously hacked. And all those people that only purchased all this stuff and didn't make backups and didn't make backups of those backups and backups of those backups, that's the problem. Because you got to make so many backups, because you know that if you lose it digitally, it's going to be so hard for you to get it again. So if Amazon gets hacked one day and all you did was have all your things in your collections digital, Amazon is not going to give it back to you for free. You're going to have to pay for it all over again.
Well, and I mentioned that earlier, is like I've had a couple of times now where this happened with my iPod, which was, I forget what generation it was. It was kind of an old one. But it happened a few times. Yeah, it happened a few times where like the iTunes program would crash, or like my computer didn't like it or whatever. And I ended up having to like completely wipe out my digital library and start over. And I was really glad that I had almost all of my music on CDs. Like there were a few songs I had purchased individually that I was eventually able to get back, but just having like the convenience and not being stressed about having to try and recreate like how many hundreds of songs, like it really is. Yeah, like I don't want to sound like, oh, the cloud is going to kill us all, but I don't trust it quite as much as like holding something in my hands and knowing that I can prove that I bought this,
No, it's a good thing to have. I mean, look, I use my school cloud for work. It's great, but I always make sure that I have my own copy of the file. And of course, I have flash drives. And when it comes to my own computer hard drive, like I don't want to lose all of the work one of the few things that I know that I will never have physically, unless I really want to put it on a DVD, is all of my YouTube work. I don't ever want to. I'm going to be so sad if I lose all that stuff, because there's so much of my life in the last 10 years that's in those videos. So yes, I put them on external hard drives, and I know for a solid fact that I'm going to probably have to consider putting all that stuff on one hard drive and then put it on another external hard drive, just in case the other one doesn't get bugged or anything like that. That's one of the biggest risks that we take. But then again, what's life without a few risks? But at the same time, you know that if you lose it, you're going to be really, really upset, especially if it's something that's so meaningful to you. And I just want to close off. I'm sorry that I'm ranting and really taking over the video here. I seem to be doing that a lot when I have something passionate to say, but the problem is, like, if you were, like I said about the Amazon thing, Amazon's not going to give it back to you for free, because if Amazon gave you and like 6 billion other people all of the stuff that you lost in their cloud because it got hacked back for free, there's going to be no more Amazon. So you gotta think very logically about it.
Yeah.
I also want to mention, Lynn Hermione had a comment that she agreed with an earlier point you made, and she said that sometimes she feels like audiobooks are almost ruining her attention span for print books. Do you guys have any comments on that? Taylor, I know you're a big audiobook fan. Have you noticed that?
No, but mostly because I usually do audiobooks of books that I wouldn't read physically. Jane Austen and Harry Potter, and there are some exceptions, but more experimental books. So, for example, Good Omens. I've had trouble reading Neil Gaiman in the past. So I decided to pick up the audiobook of Good Omens, and I had a much better time digesting his writing style than if I could have read it physically. And I read a lot of classics through audiobooks because, and I can say this because I majored in English in college, a lot of classics are boring. And sometimes I need them read to me. So I totally get where you're coming from, but I find that it helps me with books that I would normally struggle with.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I also, let's see. Oh, sorry, Steve, were you saying something else?
Yeah, one of the other things that I wanted to also expand on that, Taylor, one of the few reasons why I also like to have certain things that are physical media, it's not so much, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love having books, I really, really do, but certain books that I have are certain things that I know that if I had them digitally, it just, there would be like a lot less meaning to it. And the same can be said about music, because I got the newest, one of the things that I have here is the newest albums of Coldplay. And the reason why I love it so much is because of all of the tender love and care that was put into actually making the CD experience itself. I love the fact that it's a little book. It's got beautiful lyric stuff and it's got artwork in it. And that's one of the few things that I appreciate about certain books. Like, I didn't even think I was going to actually use this one, but I'm a big fan of a comic book artist named Alex Ross, and he makes these amazing, amazing paintings of superheroes. Like, they really look like they exist in the real world. And imagine it as if it was like a famous painting that you would go to in a museum. Would you get the same impact of looking at artwork like this, or a famous painting like something from Leonardo da Vinci or Monet or Vincent van Gogh? Would you get the same feeling of looking at the physical painting in a museum than actually just looking at the painting on a computer screen?
Yeah, that's true. It's hard to get like all the brushstrokes. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Taylor.
I was just going to say it's hard to look at the brush strokes through pixels.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, like, this whole discussion, I think it's one of those things where there's always going to be this, which I think is a good thing. There's always going to be people who like either of them. So I don't know, like, maybe this is a little optimistic, but it seems like every few years we get this, like, the sky is falling, like, physical books are going to die forever. And, you know, like, well, like, libraries for a while, like, they were saying, like, libraries are going to be a thing of the past, like, physical bookstores are going to be a thing of the past. And I think it's definitely important to, like, keep those issues at the forefront so that we don't let that happen. But, like, we think about how many people we know who love libraries or who love going to physical bookstores. Like, I think that the industry is definitely going to change as we get more digital media, but I like to think that we're never going to see the extinction of the physical book, because there are just, or physical media in general, because there are just so many people who love them and who care about putting them out, you know, like, I don't know. So
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It basically goes back around to what I said earlier at the very beginning. It's like, as long as there are collectors, I truthfully feel that physical media will never die. There was a great Netflix series. It's still on there right now. It's The Toys That Made Us. And I love that series so much. And The Films That Made Us is their newest spinoff, which is great too. Hearing about how Dirty Dancing and Home Alone were made, amazing. But,
close again.
But what I was trying to say was, the thing I loved about the first episode of The Toys That Made Us was they actually had a sociologist or a psychologist, someone in the sciences of the mind, that said the beauty of the collection, or the beauty of being a collector, is a very healthy thing, because your individual collection is an extension of your personality brought into physical.
Sorry about that. My Wi-Fi, I was saying it's fine, but it wasn't.
Oh no. But anyway, so it's an extension of yourself, And when you bring a friend of yours into your house and you say to that friend, like, I cannot wait to show you this. You're welcoming these people into your world. They're experiencing not just what you have, but they're experiencing you as a person. And it's a wonderful thing. And there's just something about, look, Taylor, it's like I'm looking at your shelf behind you, and I always love to point out your Funko Pops. I love looking at those things. And when I look at those individual Funko Pops, they're very different from the Funko Pops that I have on my shelf. It speaks about you. It shows me more about the type of person that you are, the things that you like. And that's what makes friendships stronger. That's what makes social activity stronger, and bonds between people all the more healthy. Because I think what's really funny is a lot of people say we have access to all this social media, but before the pandemic, it was making us antisocial. And now we're finally actually using social media for what its true purpose was what to bring people together.
Exactly. That's a good point.
Oh man, I feel so bad. I feel so bad for Kara. This is her show.
I can read off some of the comments while we wait for Kara to return.
Please, let's get the audience in this.
Julia from Shakespeare and Such, back to my conversation about listening to classic audiobooks. She said, and classics as audiobooks are fantastic. You get the accents, you can go faster through the filler scenes. And yes, I am planning on trying to do maybe like a Three Musketeers or no, not Three Musketeers. That's a Dumas. Victor Hugo. If I want to do Les Mis or The Hunchback of Notre Dame, an audiobook, so I can fast forward through his weird obsession with the Paris sewer system, which he does. And hi, Kara. We were waiting for you to come back, so we were reading through the comments and responding.
Everything okay, by the way?
Yeah.
And Hannah said it can be a question of space though when it comes to a collection, regardless of how much you might want a collection, and that's also true.
Yeah, I think what's actually kind of.
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I apologize again for the Wi-Fi.
No.
Also, real quick about the classics as audiobooks. I think that's a great point, and I've heard from a lot of people that they really like those. I actually had to quit reading a classic on audiobook. This was like when I was trying to experiment and like make myself enjoy audiobooks. And there were some that I did really like, but I actually had to stop because it was like a combination of like really impatient and also just hard to follow, because I'm like a very detail-oriented reader, which is not always a great thing. So I feel like I need to be able to read it and like go back and figure out a passage if I want to. And I just have a harder time doing that on audio. So I'm like very impressed with all of you guys that can like comprehend classics on audio, because I just don't have like the brain capacity for that. I'm just not good at it.
I like this quote that I'm looking at, by the way. It says, I think Stephen Fry summed it up very well. Books are no more threatened by Kindle than stairs by elevators. I love that.
Yes.
That's a really good point. Especially because, I think there's a tendency to become more alarmist when something new comes out. Like, the ebook comes out, this is the death of physical books. And I don't think that's the case. Yeah. I think they're kind of working in tandem, and it's nice that more people have the opportunities, like we were mentioning earlier, with people who have accessibility issues. It's bringing more people into reading.
Yeah. It's about giving everyone the opportunity to read, which should be something that we all are excited about.
Yeah, there was also something that popped into my head that I didn't even think about, but I might as well just bring it to the front here. Sometimes one and the same, like sometimes the physical media will try and stamp out the physical media, and sometimes the digital media will do the same. I think I remember having this conversation with so many people about how I got really upset that Blu-rays were taking over DVDs, and I was basically saying, like, I saw the quality of the Blu-ray, and I'm like, but I don't want to feel like the characters are in my living room. I want to just make sure that I'm watching the movie. But I understand understand why I do own some Blu-rays now, but mostly I own DVDs because for me, they're actually more affordable most of the time than Blu-rays. And sometimes there are things that are not even put on DVD anymore. Like you have to buy the Blu-ray just to have the DVD. I don't like that, but I understand that. But sometimes what's even more interesting is when certain things start to fade out, old types of media come back. I remember one of the biggest things that really upset me was when Best Buy announced that they were no longer selling CDs anymore, but vinyls are still being sold. Their vinyls are making a massive comeback right now. I never would have thought in my wildest dreams that that would ever happen. I love that.
Yeah. I think Blu-ray and DVD is a great example of like them trying to push the next digital thing, and everyone's like, no. Like, I don't feel like Blu-ray ever took off the way they wanted it to, which I'm fine with. Like, honestly, my biggest irritation about Blu-rays has always been like, I'm not going to buy a completely different player, like just to buy a version of the movie that I already have, you know, like.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like now we're starting to see a lot more like combos, which like I think it's unnecessary to buy a Blu-ray DVD combo when you only need one. But if that's the way I can get my DVDs, like I'm okay. Like I feel like the price has started to get a little more reasonable lately, but I just think it's so funny because the Blu-ray conversation was another one where everybody was like, DVDs will be obsolete. Like everyone throw out your DVD players, and the consumers were just like, we won't.
Yeah, I will make everybody jealous in the room right now, but my Blu-ray was free. Thank God for rewards points on credit cards.
Wow.
So the best part about Blu-ray players is they will upscale your DVDs. The problem now is the fact that if you get a new TV, you have to get the 4K. You don't have to get the 4K, which is the new big physical media concept. But if you get a 4K TV, you can still watch your Blu-rays or your DVDs. And I'm pretty sure that if you hook it up to your television, you can plug in an old VCR and watch your VHS tapes too.
I still own a few VHS tapes. Like
I still own even though I will probably never be able to watch them again, I still have the last VHS release of the original Star Wars trilogy. That's a collector's item. That's just something to have. You know what I mean?
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we've worked through all of my specific questions or topics. Do you guys have any other final thoughts? I feel like we did a great job of covering like just about every aspect of this topic. Like I think.
Well, I guess I could throw out an interesting thought. I could throw out an interesting question. Maybe everybody in the comments would want to say that. If you had to choose one streaming service, which one would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because I am going to say something. I'm sorry, please, Kara.
Oh, I think mine's like, it's basic, but I'm going to say Netflix just because I follow so few TV shows now, and the ones I do follow are on Netflix. Or like Netflix original shows. So I think that's going to have to be my answer, as uninteresting as it is, because I'm just not, I don't know, I don't follow as much TV as I used to. Also, I'm super into K-dramas, and Netflix has a reasonably good selection of K-dramas. So,
right.
So that's my answer.
My first thought was anything but Hulu. Hulu is by far the most disappointing thing I've paid for, and yet I continue to shell out a grip of money on it. I'm between Prime and Netflix. I think
Prime is a good one.
Yeah, I have my thoughts on Prime.
Yeah, I'm thinking Prime just because I can access more of my Jane Austen movies and more classic films, which Netflix does not have as much.
Yeah, that is true. They used to have a lot more, but now they don't. But the beauty of Amazon Prime is the fact that you really don't have to classify that as a streaming service, because the thing that's interesting about Amazon Prime, especially when it comes to their original programming, because one of my favorite shows is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I adore that show, but it's not on Blu-ray or DVD. And the interesting thing is, it doesn't have to be. because people don't subscribe to Amazon Prime because of the streaming service. They subscribe to Amazon Prime for free shipping, which is the genius of Amazon Prime, because you have Amazon Prime, you're going to just have it as icing on the cake. Like, I had Amazon Prime for years and never watched any of their programming. I just wanted my free shipping. So that's the reason why, because I know for a solid fact that the only way that I will get rid of Amazon Prime is if Amazon goes bust. That's the only way I'll be getting rid of Amazon Prime. But it's probably just going to be Netflix for me too, because I still have it. But I love arguing. I love getting under people's skin about Disney Plus. I really love to argue with people about Disney Plus, because if you really think about Disney Plus, there's not really that much compared to the others. I mean, Netflix thought that they were in deep trouble because of HBO Max is going to get Friends and The Office right now. But Netflix just got Nickelodeon and Seinfeld. So they're going to get some watchers for certain. They're going to keep some subscribers too. I mean, I have all of Seinfeld on DVD because it's one of my all-time favorite TV shows. But I know that there are so many people who love that show and they will go to that. But I just feel that HBO Max and Netflix and Amazon Prime, I think that Disney Plus is actually going to be the one that, to a certain degree, might fail, because unfortunately, all the controversy with Star Wars, people don't necessarily care about it. I think the only thing that's really going to keep Disney Plus afloat is The Mandalorian and the MCU movies.
That's a good point, and that's an interesting point. Also, in the comments, I amended my statement. Netflix has Too Hot to Handle and Love is Blind, and those are the only reality shows I have ever fallen in love with. So I'm switching to Netflix. In the quarantine, I watch nothing but trash, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I think we're gonna wrap it up then before my Wi-Fi inevitably destroys itself again.
Yeah, we felt so bad for you, Kara.
And the camera has gone out again.
Oh, drat.
Oh, there we go. You're back.
And now she's gone again.
Oh, no, she's gone.
Well, we're not going off this stream until we officially all formally say goodbye to everybody. That's a promise.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. We got you?
Sorry. Maybe it's very thematic appropriate having so many digital problems for this discussion, but
yeah, clearly physical media won the time.
Yeah. we got so into it that we wanted to demonstrate some of the fans of digital media. But thank you guys, everybody. Thank you guys, everybody, for joining us. We had so much fun discussing with you. We hope that you are staying safe and doing well, and that you're finding lots of media, whether it's digital or some combination of you. Thank you again, my wonderful guests, Steve and Taylor. Thank you guys. It was a lot of fun to host with you, and yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.
And we'll say goodbye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for watching.